This video is a response to Jumi Kim's video because I think the same thing is happening with movies. Here's what I got to say about it. Stop making woke movies. They don't work. And before people get angry, let me explain what I mean. I'm not saying films can't change the world. They can. Great art has always changed people, but it does it indirectly. It does it emotionally, not through lectures, not through ideological manipulation. And somewhere along the way, modern cinema forgot that. I'm going to promise you something. This video is not about politics. It's about storytelling. It's about being honest, about why so many modern films feel hollow, despite having enormous budgets, fantastic directors, great actors, all the correct ingredients. This video is about why audiences are quietly walking away from cinema. If the synopsis of your film, of your movie, sounds anything like this, a fearless takedown of capitalism, a bold critique of the patriarchy, a deconstruction of the colonial systems, you're already in trouble. And I'm not talking about the subject matter, I'm talking about the approach. You're aiming at the lesson instead of the story. And stories don't work that way. Let me say that again. Stories don't work that way. They never have. I don't care what your story's about. I don't care if you think it's the greatest theme ever. It doesn't matter at all. You cannot begin with the conclusion. You cannot start by deciding what the audience must think. That's called propaganda, not drama. And listen, I understand the impulse. I really do. You want your work to matter. I want it to matter too. I want that for you. You want to expose injustice. You want to influence culture. That's a noble impulse. But cinema is the wrong medium for direct ideological argument. You want to argue politics? Write a book, give a lecture, become a professor, go on television, make a YouTube video like this one. Those are mediums built for persuasion. Cinema works different. Shakespeare said the purpose of drama is to hold the mirror up to nature. He was right. Not to judge it, not to manipulate it, not to flatten human beings into moral talking points, just to reveal them honestly, completely. That's the job. To show us ourselves, the beautiful parts, the ugly parts, the contradictory parts, without forcing a conclusion. Let's start with a great example. There Will Be Blood. Daniel Plainview is a terrible human being, by all measurements. Greedy, violent, consumed by ambition. And yet, Paul Thomas Anderson and Daniel Day-Lewis present him honestly. Not as a cartoon villain, as a human being. And because of that, we feel empathy for him. Not agreement, empathy. That distinction matters enormously. When artists stop judging their characters, the audience finally gets to experience the truth of them. And through that truth, we understand greed and the evils of capitalism more deeply than any lecture could ever teach us. Because we recognize ourselves inside the monster. And that's what real art does. It dissolves superiority. This is something modern cinema seems terrified of. The idea that terrible people are still people. That villains are not aliens, they're us, they're you. Different choices, different circumstances, different actions, but human. If you don't understand that, I don't know if you're fit to be an artist. And now look at so much modern storytelling. Characters don't feel human. They feel constructed for a purpose. They're engineered, like they exist only to communicate approved ideas. Heroes are morally perfect. Villains are simplistic caricatures. Everyone speaks like they've been filtered through social media discourse and sensitivity readers. No contradiction, no danger, no unpredictability, no life. God forbid you offend anybody. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and say it. If your work doesn't offend anybody, your work is garbage. And this is why I find the contrast in Paul Thomas Anderson's work so fascinating. Because There Will Be Blood feels alive, dangerous, human, offensive. All the right things. But when filmmakers become overly conscious of message, something changes. Characters stop behaving like people and start behaving like pieces of an argument. And the audience feels it immediately, even if they can't articulate why. Now, compare There Will Be Blood to One Battle After Another. I mean, honestly, something essential was lost. Take the character of Colonel Lockjaw and his entire group of cronies, all of them. Now, Sean Penn is doing everything he can. He's a phenomenal actor. He understands how to embody a character. But the character's not alive. Character feels constructed, manipulated into behaving in a particular way, like an embodiment of an idea instead of a person. He's a comic book monster, an empty platitude. And because of that, the humanity disappears. Danger goes away, drama dissipates. All of a sudden, I'm reading Chicken Soup for the Filmmaker's Soul. If you look at all the scenes with the so-called Christmas adventurers, those scenes are disingenuous. They're flat filler. They're lies. They're there only to make a point. And this is the death of art. The film then becomes so preoccupied with its own message that it forgets the things cinema needs most: living human beings. Characters stop surprising us. They stop contradicting themselves. They stop feeling dangerous. We know exactly where this is going to go. There are no surprises. Everyone begins to feel manipulated towards a predetermined conclusion. And once the audience senses manipulation, the emotional connection collapses. And what makes this particularly surprising is that it is Paul Thomas Anderson, one of the greatest filmmakers alive, a master. A director who once trusted ambiguity, contradiction, human complexity. That's what makes There Will Be Blood unforgettable. It trusted the audience enough to wrestle with the meaning themselves. And that's the larger problem with so much modern cinema. It no longer trusts the audience. It wants control. It wants certainty. It wants approval. I want to ask, control of what? You really think you have control? Stories are alive. They're living things. And they're unpredictable. Audiences are starving for something right now. And it's not perfection. It's not moral instruction. It's truth. Messy, complicated, human truth. Here's another great example. The Wolf of Wall Street. Now, Scorsese doesn't lecture you. He doesn't stop the movie every 5 minutes to explain that greed is bad. I would never do something like this. I'm not like this character. He doesn't do that. He simply shows you the life, the attraction, the excess, the seduction. And because he's honest about the appeal, the consequences actually land harder. That's courage. To trust the audience enough to let them wrestle with the meaning themselves. This is the core of cinema. Story comes first, always. If you force ideology above story, the audience feels manipulated. You've betrayed your commitment to the art form. You're not making movies, you're making propaganda. But when you tell the truth about human beings, something incredible happens. The themes emerge naturally. And you have the possibility of art. You don't get the certainty, never have that, but you have the possibility. In other words, this is cinema. This is not. I think audiences are exhausted. They're exhausted of being preached to, exhausted by stories that already know the answer before they begin. We don't go to the cinema for ideological certainty. We go for revelation, confrontation, recognition, and to see ourselves reflected honestly. If you disagree with me, I'm sure a lot of you do, let me know in the comments. Seriously, conversation matters. And if you connected with this video, hit like and subscribe. I help filmmakers make movies that matter. And remember, don't just direct your movies, direct your life.